Hi, welcome to In Vivo, our live 1 hour question and answer session with San Antonio's major candidates for mayor. I'm Greg Jefferson, Metro editor of the San Antonio Express News. I'm joined today by City Hall reporter Molly Smith.
Hello.
And our special guest, Rolando Pablos. Welcome.
Hey guys, thanks.
So you are one of 200 or 300 mayoral candidates this year. Rolando, it changes, filing hasn't closed for spots on the ballot, so we don't actually have a number. Like I said, it's going to be in the hundreds. So Rolando is an attorney and business consultant. You were the founding CEO of the regional trade group, Borderplex Alliance. Also, you're former Texas Secretary of State and Texas Public Utility Commissioner, both positions to which you were appointed by Governor Abbott, correct? Or was PUC that was Perry? Rick Perry.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Before we get to your first question, again, welcome. To our viewers, participation is key to this event. So please, if you have a question, go down to the chat function, enter your question, and we'll get to as many of them as we can. But let's get things started with an easy one. Why are you running for mayor?
Well, first of all, let me tell you, I'm not running for mayor. I'm not doing this for political ambition or to climb a ladder to a bigger post somewhere. I'm not doing this to stay relevant, to keep in the spotlight. I'm not doing this, definitely not for financial gain. Or to exert my own ideology or agenda. I'm doing this because this is home, and I want to restore the promise of San Antonio, the promise of a great city, safe city, prosperous city, a city where families can thrive, and a city where we have a government that works for the people, not the other way around. So for me, being here 40 years, having this be my home for all this time, I want to see it prosper. I want to see things change for the better.
What do you? I think most people, when they run for mayor, it's to fix something. What is it? What is top of mind for what you want to address? Like, where does San Antonio fall short, and how do you want to correct that?
That's a good question. I think that our biggest problem that we have in the city is systemic poverty. For whatever reason, we haven't been able to crack the code on poverty, on educational attainment. Those are systemic problems that we have, and for whatever reason, we haven't done it. The poverty rate when I was born in 1967 here in San Antonio was 18%. Do you know what it is today?
Yeah,
it's 18%.
That's right.
So how is it that we can continue to accept this lot in life of being a poor city, 1 in 5 people being poor? I mean, that's crazy. And we just continue to kick the can down the road. And, I haven't seen really any effort to try to fix it. So I would love to figure out a way to tackle our poverty problem. And the way you do it is through economic development. Our poverty is certainly something significant. It's the root of many of our problems, like crime, homelessness, all of those things that are impacting us here in a negative way, I think can be traced back down to poverty. So I would say poverty, but most importantly, I think is having a unified city, a unified city council. Right now, as I travel across town and I talk to people, it's very clear to me that we're a divided city. We're almost balkanized. I mean, we're divided. There's hostility. It's an us versus them. And I think what we need is a bridge builder. We need a leader who can bring us together. And I think I can do that.
What does economic development look like that would raise the poverty rate? And I asked because I think the city would say we do a lot of economic development, but oftentimes we see very low wage jobs coming in. So what does that look like for you, the type of development to get people out of poverty?
Well, I think we start with the fact that we have an image as a city that is not friendly to business. We have to change that perception about San Antonio. Just parenthetically, Molly, every time I hear these ridiculous listings that come out about San Antonio being the fattest, poorest, ugliest, whatever city, and not seeing any of our leaders push back on that, I think is ridiculous, because that perception becomes reality. And not being able to attract the businesses, the investment that we need, I think is really problematic. But we need to fix a lot of these things that we have internally. So economic development really means bringing in quality investment that's going to create quality jobs, that's going to create quality paychecks that allow people to lead a dignified life, to be able to afford things. Right now, that's not happening. As a matter of fact, we're going the other direction. We're losing companies. We just lost New Star Energy. Those are 500-600 quality executive jobs that we've lost. I've seen San Antonio from the outside with outsiders' eyes. I've seen how site selection consultants view us. They view us as a place where our workforce isn't fully developed, that it needs more development. View us as a place where our city government is not friendly to business. So we have a lot of these issues that we need to address. But most importantly, it all gets back to being a unified city, coming together. Right now, we have a lot of bickering, a lot of fighting. Our governments don't talk to each other.
Mm-hmm. Is that partisan? The division you're talking
about? Yes, absolutely.
Well, that's versus Republic.
That's one of the reasons, where people bring their ideology and their partisanship to the table. Mm-hmm. That's a recipe for disaster. There's a reason why our charter says that all city council seats, including the mayors, should be nonpartisan, because they knew back then that partisanship divides. And those people that want to make this race and all the council races partisan, they're the reasons why we're divided. They're the ones that are tearing this community apart. So we've got to just check your ideology at the door, check your partisanship at the door, come together, and let's focus on the things that matter, because there are a lot of things that matter, like basic services, that aren't being addressed because we're spending time handling issues that we really have no control over and actually need to be deprioritized.
So you want to be mayor of a city council where, you're right, like these are nonpartisan offices, yet we all seem to know what party every council member mayor belongs to.
It's always,
and we know that the overwhelming majority of the 10-member council are Democrats. You'd come in as Republican. You don't see any friction between you and the body.
I hope not to create any friction. The fact that I am a Republican and I've been a Republican should have nothing to do with it, because I'm not going to come in and impart my ideology. And by the way, the city council people that will remain, they're pragmatic. They understand what needs to get done. So viewing someone as Republican in a negative way, well, let me tell you, that's the wrong way to view it. I think what we need to look at is, and ask the questions is this mayor qualified? Does this mayor have experience? Does this mayor have leadership experience that is proven? Does this mayor have the network and connections that are needed to be able to bring funds home and lift the city? Because the mayor really, as we all know, is really the person that goes out and represents the city. We have a city manager that is handling the day-to-day, but really it's the mayor's job to create a vision together with council, bring council together, and really the one thing that we can affect is the budget, and be able to put together a budget that makes sense for the city. And then the mayor needs to be out there selling San Antonio, convincing people to come and invest here so that we can have quality jobs. People are living paycheck to paycheck without any hope in sight. They're stuck in dead-end, low-wage jobs. We've got to do something about that. And our children are being cheated out of an education that they deserve for whatever reason. So the mayor can really affect that. And so you want someone who can get out there and sell the city and be credible in front of executives and investors that are looking to invest somewhere.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you'll often find serious mayoral candidates talking in that way, that, I would go out and sell the city. But what does that mean, really? And what industries are you talking about? Like, what industry is ripe for San Antonio?
Yeah. Well, as Secretary of State, I got a chance to go sell Texas all over the world. And, being the 7th largest economy in the world, it was a great moment for me to be able to sell Texas, to be able to talk about the great things that Texas can offer. And it's working. I mean, we're a hot economy as a state. What's happening to San Antonio is that it's lagging behind. All the other major cities are bringing in investment. They're convincing companies to come. And I think what these cities are doing, their secret sauce is they're focusing on what they're able to do, not on what they wish to do. Mm-hmm. So for San Antonio, let's look at our strengths. We have tremendous strengths. Look at the medical center that we have. Look at this merger with UT. That's probably, what, if I had to say what the greatest thing that's happened to San Antonio in decades, it's the merger with UT Health and UTSA, because now we're competitive in that realm. We're now competing with UCLA.
That's a pretty difficult idea, right? Like there is a lot to that merger, but I think probably for most of our viewers, it's not clear what the real payoff is for the city. What do you see it being? Well, what does San Antonio get out of that?
So if you look at how academia works, in academia, to be a credible academic institutions, you need to be able to attract quality professors, quality research dollars, and quality students. So as you go out into the world and, as Taylor Amy is going to try to convince, Nobel laureates to come here by saying, come to UTSA. Well, it may be a little bit more difficult, but now if you say, come to this monster of an organization that is now credible, is competing with Berkeley and Stanford and those places, because it will. Then now we'll be able to bring in quality professors, quality research, because quality professors, they attract research dollars. Yeah. We can also work with our federal government to bring in the research. There's no reason why San Antonio can't market itself as a research hub. We have all the ingredients. We're having a hard time bringing those together with Southwest Research and all. I don't have to name all the research that's going on here. Now with that's going to be the catalyst, really, that's going to take us to the next level. And it'll also help promote this medical center as a place where people can come here, not choose Houston or elsewhere. This is a place where people can come and take care of their health.
Yeah. Now let me introduce the first viewer question. By the way, I fess up. I totally screwed up. Do not write your question in chat. In fact, I think we've disabled the chat function. Go to obviously Q&A, write your question there, and we'll get him to give you the A. Here's your first question. Do you support funding out-of-state abortion travel? And this is a reference.
Absolutely not.
Okay. Let's absolutely not. Some background first. This is a reference to the Reproductive Justice Fund, which City Council created in the last budget. So it would have been the 2023 budget. And it really, in the grand scheme of things, it was a pittance. It was $500,000 for a variety of reproduction and sex education initiatives, including nominally travel for out of state to procure an out of state abortion. It wound up not being none of the money is being used for that currently. So kind of walk us through your position. You say absolutely not, but what's your reason?
Part of what's happening with city government is that we got our wrong priorities. We don't have our priorities straight. I'm not saying that any of this is not important. It's important to many people. But so is other city services that aren't being funded. So we have to make sure that whatever money is being used, it's used for basic services. Now, if people feel strongly enough about it, well, let them reach into their personal pockets, write their checkbooks to many of these nonprofits that are out there so that they can affect that. But why are you putting the burden on 100% of the population when maybe 50% of it doesn't agree with it? So now you're creating tension. You're creating this environment that continues to set us back. When you bring in ideology to the table, you're going to upset people, and you're going to basically cloud what issues that really matter. Like, senior citizens not having air conditioning, and our solution is to give them box fans. We can use that money to help senior citizens get air conditioning, or the disabled to get more crosswalks, or whatever it is. We just need to prioritize, our spending. And for me, we shouldn't be spending money on that.
Right. So just to be clear, though, the city, as you noted, the city spends all kinds of money that's not for basic services like police, fire, libraries. There is a down payment assistance program for first time home buyers. Programs like that. You're not suggesting that those should be deprioritized in favor of basic service.
I'm suggesting that whatever the city is funding is for the ultimate goal of improving the lives of people here. And right now, we've got a lot of issues with public safety, with our streets, our roads being broken. 25% of our streets are considered broken. We have other priorities that we need to focus on. The problem with this kind of a proposal is that you immediately divide people. So I'm not saying, look, let's just deprioritize it. Just like they tell you in the airplane, put the mask on first and then to your bed. Let's take care of basic services first, because we're suffering as a community by the lack of basic services that we're not getting. And we're trying to do other things that really don't add value to the whole concept of making this community prosper.
How do you think you would get other council members on board with that position, given that the mayor is one of 11 votes?
Yeah, look, I mean, I understand the mayor has one vote. And that's what people should understand is the limitations of the mayor as it relates to a lot of this policymaking. I've been very clear with my intent on how I would work with council. And that is, I would first earn their trust. I would first work with them to create a vision that we all can agree on, and then allow each council person to bring their priorities to the table. And I would bring the power of the office of the mayor to help them with those priorities. I would work in a supporting role to these council folks, not in a lead role. Because the way the charter is written, the mayor is the 11th position, and the mayor should be there to support each council person. And that's the way I intend to do that. Now, I would speak to them specifically with this issue. I would speak to them in terms of our budget and priorities that we have. We need to make sure that we get our priorities straight, and funding travel is not, to me, should not be a top priority. We've got other priorities. We've got issues, very serious issues. And by the way, I was going to talk about public safety. I want to send our prayers and thoughts to the 7 police officers that were shot last night. That is a priority. Mental health for police officers is a priority, and for the community at large. So that's the contrast, is where do we want to spend our money? Limited money. We don't have a lot of money. As a matter of fact, Eric has already sounded the alarm that we're basically spending more than we're taking in. So how is it that we can then, just send money out to things that really aren't going to add value to the core priority of the city, which is to make our people prosper?
We want to ask you about a statement you put out yesterday outlining your opposition to what you called sanctuary city policies. And you said, quote, "We have a responsibility to deport individuals who represent a danger to our families." Do you think San Antonio police should be actively detaining and arresting people based on the fact or the suspicion that they are in the country without legal permission?
I think that San Antonio police should arrest all violent criminals and take them off the streets. If you look at the context of my statement, in the context of what we're talking about dangerous criminals. We've got to get dangerous criminals, irrespective of their immigration status, get them off the streets. And if the police aren't allowed to look at their background, look into who they are, then we're not going to get them off the street. So yes. And in this case, in this particular case, look, if you're an asylum seeker who came to this country, and like here we are spending time on something that has nothing to do with the mayor can't affect, right? This is federal law. But I'll tell you, if you're an asylum seeker, you came to this country and you stayed out of trouble, you haven't broken any laws, you're working, then you are afforded due process. The law says you have to have due process so that you can then go to an immigration judge or an immigration officer and prove your case. And look, if you do have a legitimate asylum case, then you should be allowed to stay. But 90% of those cases are being denied because they're not legitimate asylum cases. So that's one thing we have to understand. I'm an immigrant. My parents brought us here from Mexico when I was 9 years old for the same reason, to seek a better life, to get an education here. So I understand their plight. I certainly understand it. And I also understand that they shouldn't be living in fear, and they are living in fear. But at the same time, for those criminals that have come to this country and wreaked havoc on San Antonio in particular, they shouldn't be here. And so that's really the basis of my statement.
So you believe police should be, in instances where they are making arrests and detention for select crimes, asking folks about their immigration status?
I think that they should understand everything about that person in making a determination as to how to proceed. Absolutely.
So what do you think about a person who's in the country illegally, but yet they're not in any way a dangerous criminal? Should they be swept up in a mass deportation?
See, here we go. So we're talking about divisive issues,
right,
that have nothing to do with the mayor. I would rather focus on talking about things that the mayor can impact. Again, what we've allowed over the decades is to allow people to come here without documents, and now they're integrated into our society. So for those people that say deport them all, well, okay, that's your opinion, but how are you going to resolve the issue of all these businesses that are employing these folks?
Right.
Can you give me an answer? If you can give me an answer on how you're going to handle that, because if they all left today, this society would collapse because we've allowed that to happen. So that's the pragmatic aspect.
Right. But that is a concern of a mayor, right?
It is, but it's nothing that the mayor has control over, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I'm
not running for Congress. Okay. I'm running for mayor of San Antonio with one vote, looking to change the dynamics of our city so that we can all really, because the mayor's job really is to improve the welfare, to protect the welfare of our citizens. But I will tell you this, our citizens come first. San Antonians do come first.
All right, let's take a viewer question. This comes up a lot. The construction downtown has choked out many small businesses. What are your plans for helping small businesses recover from their losses? So there's been a plethora over the last several years of major street projects in and around the downtown area, and I think it's a lot of small businesses have suffered as a result. And I'm sure you've heard from some of them.
You had your street closed. I call it.
Not about us, but yes, absolutely.
I call it insensitive street construction. Yes, is it going to be good for us in the long run? Yes, but why is it such a mess? Why are we allowing this to happen? Yesterday I was in the heart of downtown, and I didn't know where to go because everything is shut down. And what's happening here is the people who are suffering are the small business owners, because people just don't want to come downtown because of that. We have the Final Four coming, and Alamo Street's going to be a mess. It's going to be torn up. I mean, yes, I get it. We need progress and all that, but couldn't have we done it a little better? I think if you look at my proposal for small business, I'm calling the decade of small business. I've laid it out. One of those things is better coordination with businesses, better understanding, better communication. I go everywhere around town, and it's not just downtown, it's everywhere. Whether they're laying down fiber optics, whether some construction crew decided to shut down a lane, whatever it is, we've got to get our act together as it relates to our traffic, because one of the biggest frustrations that I'm hearing from people is our gridlock traffic. We're stuck in traffic. Small businesses have a higher price to pay because when their employees are out in traffic, they're wasting time. Deliveries are arriving late. Small businesses are having to pay most of these people by the hour, so it gets expensive. We've got to get our act together with our traffic gridlock, and a lot of that has to do with planning, communication, and technology. There's technology out there. See, we could be spending money on technology to improve our traffic signaling systems so that we can have a better experience. We've got to get people from point A to point B the fastest way possible. And right now, it took me an hour to get here because there was a lane closed on 281, and there's just some guys over there. I don't know what they were doing.
How much of that is a state issue, though? Versus
it doesn't matter. It's both. Okay, so we need to work, instead of fighting with TxDOT, we need to work with them. And we've been fighting with TxDOT. We need to have open lines of communication with TxDOT. People say, well, that's a state issue. It's not a city issue. It's both. And I challenge you to look at a lot of these street closures, lane closures, construction. a good majority of that is city.
Yes, definitely
Okay.
downtown.
Yeah. But look,
The urban core.
so let's talk about TxDOT. We have billions of dollars being invested in this community by TxDOT. That's not by accident. That's Bruce Bugg, the chairman of TxDOT, bringing that investment here. You know, for many years, Dallas and Houston traded off chairmen of TxDOT, and that's why they got all that infrastructure money. Bruce Bugg is bringing that money here. And yes, we're creating a great infrastructure, and it's a pain in the butt, especially 1604 and I-10. Oh my God. But tell you what, if we had better coordination, better communication from both sides, city and state. But I think it's really a situation where it almost seems like nobody gave any thought to our businesses, and that breaks my heart because these are the people who are putting their lives on the line by working. They're risking it all, and then you shut down the street for months. Now, I can't imagine why the city wouldn't put in their contracts for termination for completion dates, and if not, putting in penalties. And they say they do, but if they did, then it wouldn't take so long.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get that better communication, particularly with these street closures? And I'm curious if there's folks inside City Hall that you kind of put the blame on and might want to replace.
No. I'm not looking to replace anyone. I think I think that the city employees are doing a great job. They just need to be given, a better ability to better serve. Why are these streets shut down all at once? Well, we know it's all the bonds and everything, but there has to be better coordination. And I don't know. Maybe they need technology. Maybe they need better planning. I just don't know. But you asked about the impact on small business. It's huge. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to stand for it because it's the small businesses that hire people. They're the engine room of this community. And when you crap on them that way, whether it's intentional or not, you're hurting our community when you're trying to help. So it's like good intentions gone bad.
The city has a grant program for small businesses hurt by street closures. Would you keep that in force? Even if you smooth out
the best grant program is to stay the hell out of the way of these small businesses. Just get out of the way. Yeah. Let them flourish. Don't frustrate them, with red tape. If you want to help them by, making this community safer. A lot of these small business owners, aren't getting the business they should because people are afraid to get out, mostly restaurants and bars, break-ins. We've had our cars broken into. I don't want to leave my backpack, in any parking lot because I'm afraid it's going to get my car's going to get broken into. And so I think that the best way the city can help small businesses is get out of the way, facilitate, not get in the way. When I've been a state regulator twice, I was the chairman of the Texas Racing Commission, which is horse and dog racing. It was gaming. And then also utilities. And, what Governor Perry used to tell us with respect to regulating is, make the regulations fair, make them transparent, make them predictable, and enforce the regulations. Don't frustrate our businesses, and then just get out of the way. The businesses will flourish. Just make sure that you're creating the environment for them to grow. And shutting streets down for no apparent reason for extended periods of time, that's exactly the opposite.
What does San Antonio need to do to bring down property crime? And it's worth noting that overall crime is down compared to from 2024 to 2033. Property crime is up, but the violent crimes against society are down. So I'm curious, with that property crime category, which a lot of residents complain about, what does the police department need to do?
I don't buy the property or that crime is down. Fine. I'm sure that some statistician says that it is. But look, when you go around talking to people, there is no evidence that crime is down. I think that we need to take a look at the root cause of crime in this community. Let's look at why this is happening. Mental health, poverty. We talked about poverty. Youth programs. Let's keep our kids busy. Let's get them. Let's keep them away from gang activity. Let's help them, stay busy during the afternoons. Let's give them mentorship programs. let's help our youth, because that's really where a lot of that happens. Now, with respect to our police force, we need to be 100% supportive of them. Yes, they need additional funding, but funding is not the only solution. We also need to help them because, just like last night, 7 police officers responding to a call. You know how scary it is to show up to something and not know what's going to happen. So that drains you mentally. So we also have to be supportive of helping police with their mental health, with their day to day. We can't ignore them, and we certainly can't defund them. Same thing with our first responders. The other day I was at Trader Joe's and a lady slipped and fell. And let me tell you, we had some of the best first responders show up. They treated her with such care. They were so nice with her. Those are the unsung heroes that we need to take care of. If we can't support them, then we're going to continue going down the same path. And then we also need to be tough when it comes time to prosecute. Because if I know nothing's going to happen to me, when I go steal something or when I go
talk about something that's not in the purview of a mayor,
right? That's correct. So that's part of it is the prosecution of it. So those you asked what can be done. I think those are the things that can be done, and just make sure that we have enough officers, because right now we have a shortfall of them.
You said it's important for city council to support officers. What does that mean for council? Is it more funding?
Financially, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. But it also means giving them the support they need with respect to their mental health, like I talked about. Making sure that they have the resources that they need to be able to live their lives on a daily basis.
Kind of in that same vein, we have a viewer who wants to know what your thoughts are on the San Antonio Police Department's cite and release program. This is not arresting people for minor crimes, giving them a citation and releasing them where previously maybe they would have been taken in for super small amounts of marijuana or something like that.
Well, look, I don't know enough about that program, but I'll tell you what, when people know that nothing's going to happen to them, that there are no repercussions for their actions, they're going to push the boundaries, just like children when they know you're not going to, they test you. So I don't know enough about this program, but at the same time, I understand that our police are overworked, our jails are full, all those things. So there's got to be a happy medium. I just don't know enough about it.
Okay.
I want to ask you about Ready to Work. Mayor Ron Nirenberg has cast this job training program as a way to tackle the city's generational poverty. And when Nirenberg and council asked voters back in November 2020 to dedicate a portion of the city's sales tax to fund this program over a 4-year period, you endorsed the program. You appear in endorsement videos that were posted on social media. I'm curious, kind of from your perspective, the program has been around since 2022. Is it working as you believed it would when you backed it 4 years ago?
I did back it, happily backed it, because there's never a shortage of good ideas in this community. It's just the execution of it. When I was told what the plan was, it made total sense, especially on the generational poverty eradication concept. The problem is that it hasn't been run effectively. From what I understand, the numbers don't justify the expenditures or the money that's been invested. I think it's a good idea, great intention, but we know that a lot of times intentions don't deliver results. So we have to make sure that that program either delivers or not. I want to look at it. I want to analyze it. I want to see where things went wrong. Because frankly, it's not fair to the taxpayers. We're asking the taxpayers to fund this, and it's not working. And I don't know. I really haven't seen the tremendous amount of public outcry, but the business community and those that are kind of in the bubble know that this has been a tremendous failure, in spite of what is being said. I would want to perhaps get a little creative and maybe expand it into business owners. categorizing them as workforce and training them, because they're the ones that are creating jobs. So maybe what we do is we allow for business owners to participate and train them in just basic business skills.
Like small business owners?
Yeah, small business owners
across the...
No, small business owners. Yes. Thank you for clarifying.
But that sounds like, well, we've got this money, we need to spend it.
Right.
So let's come up with a way to spend it. I mean, if you get to that point, why not just kill it?
Well, that's not off the table.
I mean, you're talking about bringing in small business. I'm
talking about how do you make it survive?
Payroll, or
Well, yeah, no. I would never ask for
paying people's hard. So we're going to do that for them.
I would never ask for the taxpayers to pay anybody's payroll like that.
Right.
The thing is that if you're asking me how do we fix it, how do we make it survive, that's my recommendation. But look, here's the thing: the state of Texas has the Sunset Commission. The Sunset Commission is an agency designed to take a look at other agencies to see if they're working, to see if their original legislative intent is working. We don't have that locally. We don't have an organization that is looking at all these programs. I call them Frankensteins that we've created, that we keep funding, and we don't even know. We don't have accountability. We don't know if they're working. And so we need to take a hard look. We need to create a standard for analyzing a lot of these programs, even city departments. Let's look at them. Are they working? Do they need to be merged with others? Are they effective or not? This one is the same thing. Let's take a deep look at its original intent, at its KPIs. What was it supposed to do? And then did it do it or not? And if it's not working, you get rid of it.
How quickly do you think you would make that decision with Ready to Work?
Well, I don't know. I'd have to go in and look at it, make sure that, because it has to be very deliberate. You don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So I'd like to take a look at it. And let me tell you, there's so much to learn. I'm not an expert in everything. I would bring a qualified team of experts to take a look at it. Throughout my career, I've been really good at putting teams together, people who understand what they're doing, take a look at it. And, I would confer with council, see what they think. Their opinion would matter a lot to me. But, there's no denying results, especially objective results. And that's a pretty black or white kind of answer is, did you create the jobs? Because here's the thing is, if we created X amount of jobs, how much per job are we paying? How much does that cost us to create one job? And I guarantee you, it's probably more than the salary itself.
Now, allow me to nerd out just for a moment. We're going to keep this super short.
When you nerd out, then it's dangerous.
Don't drag this out. Let's just get it over with quickly. You're talking about basically I
like it when he qualifies things.
Right. A sunsetting commission for city programs kind of got me thinking about City Councilman Mark White's zero-based budgeting initiative, which is where you look at every line item of every city department in creating the budget. Can you support that or no?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's more than that. It's just starting over. It's just starting over.
Yeah, you're starting every year from zero.
Right.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying though is that when we create a city department or a program, it needs to go through a sunset process, which means it needs to go through a process that tees it up for regular review, for accountability. Because here we've got programs that have been there forever, and I don't know if they're successful. Are we going to take city staff's word for it? Well, we can trust, but we got to verify. But it's got to be objective. We got to look, is this working or not? And let's get politics out of it. Let's get ideology out of it, because if it's not working, we need to move it out of the way or merge it into something that can work. That right there would be my idea of beginning to improve local government. It may or may not be popular, but look, we've got to have a regular oversight, just like the state. It's not anything. It's not a novel concept. The state does it. And look, I've been through 3 sunset reviews. I've run 3 state agencies. I've been through sunset reviews. I know what it is. It's self-reporting. It's analysis. You have to justify, the legislative intent. And if it's not working, then you just get rid of it. That's not personal. It's just like, it's not working. Yeah. Let's move on. That's how you make government efficient.
All right, let's take a viewer question. How do you plan on stopping the brain drain from San Antonio? And how do you plan to win the youth vote and ensure their future to get them and their businesses to stay in San Antonio? That's a lot. So,
Okay. So
let's start with the brain drain.
let's start
The
with the
idea
brain drain. Yeah.
that the highly educated young people of San Antonio are going elsewhere because that's where the money is. That's where their opportunity.
That's where the jobs are.
Yeah.
So people have been asking me, like, why are you supporting restaurants? Why are you supporting bars? Why are you focused on hospitality? And part of the reason, other than jobs and all that, is that we have to have a culture and environment where young talent can find itself, enjoying their community. If we don't have a good nightlife, if we don't have good restaurants, bars, good recreation, then how do we expect to attract talent? I have adult children that are elsewhere, and I'm trying to convince them to come down here, come back to San Antonio. But
Where do they live?
Houston and Austin. And look, they love this place.
Austin, I understand. Houston, not so much.
Well, look, here's the thing: is that they're not saying that they'll never come back to San Antonio, but right now the jobs that they have aren't necessarily the jobs that they could get here. The nightlife that is being offered there is not what you can get here. The single scene, that's all those things are very important, because that's what companies look at when they're coming to San Antonio, and that's what talent looks at. When we were growing up, we would go to school, and then we'd get a job. We'd look at a company, get a job, and then we'd move to wherever they tell us to move. Well, now it's the other way around. Kids live where they want to live, and then they try to find a job. And what's happening right now with our brain drain is that not only are we not cool enough or hip enough or whatever you want to call it for them, but we're also not offering those amenities and those opportunities that they can get elsewhere. And that's where Austin, Dallas, and Houston are kicking our butt.
Let's talk about Project Marvel. I know city officials will say,
What a surprise.
Project Marvel is going to make us a lot
Who came up with that name? Who came up with that name? I'm like,
I don't know.
God.
But if you are lucky enough to be elected mayor, find out who it was, punish them appropriately.
they need to be punished. My God.
I mean, like,
I've been in economic
this cannot
development.
stand.
And we usually create, project names from Marvel. Really?
Yeah.
And I knew you were going to ask that question because you're passionate about it.
Let's passionate. No, it's a
Molly's passionate about it.
She is, but she's passionate because it's a multi-billion-dollar project.
Yeah.
But let's
Sports entertainment
kind of set it. Yes, sports and entertainment district. We're talking about the possibility of new Spurs arena, an expanded convention center, upgraded Alamo Dome. This one kills me. A second convention center hotel when the first one isn't doing that great, and a lot of private development around it.
Yeah.
And this is something that could be paid for with public dollars, so city dollars.
Yeah. When I first saw it, my first thought is that this is overly ambitious. And it's like over the top. I mean, it's dreamy. Yes. Would it be great? Absolutely. That land bridge gets me. That's amazing. All those are good things, but let's be practical about it. Okay. Do we need an entertainment district downtown? Absolutely. Do we need to let the private sector pay for it? Absolutely.
And by pay for all of it?
No, let me finish. I think that for the entertainment district itself, if you create the environment for investment, then private sector will come if they believe in it, if they believe that our city is business friendly and will allow this to happen. Now, with respect to the arena, look, let's take a step back and let's talk about the Spurs. The first question we need to ask ourselves is, do we want them here or not? Do we want them here? I can name a dozen metro areas with a ton of billionaires who would love to have an NBA team. Remember the saying, you don't know what you have until it's gone? I'd hate for us to fall into that category. I'm not saying the Spurs are going to leave, but the question I would have for the Spurs is very simple: is what have you done for us lately? What have you done for San Antonio? Have you had an economic impact that's worthy of us, coming into this public-private partnership with you guys? I would ask the Spurs organization today, show us what your economic impact has been. Maybe go back 20 years. whatever it is. Show us what it is, because if it's substantial, if it's significant, then we need to fight like hell to keep them here. On top of the fact that they're part of our culture, that San Antonio is the Spurs and vice versa.
I mean, can you really look at the Spurs in that way, though? And I can't believe I'm defending them in this way. But I mean, if you look at their economic impact, my guess is it's not going to be huge, right? But there's a cultural aspect to it. It's part of the city's identity, and almost as importantly, it is the one thing for which San Antonio is known nationally.
Yeah. There's that emotional aspect, but let's go back to the impact. If it's in the billions, it's significant. Okay. So that's the one question I would ask them. It shows what your impact has been in this community. Has it been substantial? Right. And if it is, then it's worth fighting for, just on economics alone. Okay. Now, taking a look at the arena, as mayor, I would never force the Spurs organization to hold negotiation meetings in closed doors. I would never force them to do that. And that's what's been happening. This deal needs to be transparent. It needs to be out in the open, and it needs to pay for itself. I mean, look, this arena, it's what I tell my kids: do you want it or do you need it? Okay. But in this case, it doesn't really matter. If we're thinking about an arena downtown, and I'm not calling it the Spurs arena because it's not just going to be for the Spurs. It'd be nice for UTSA to have their arena there too. I mean, they did it in Austin. UT Systems should be a part of this somehow, but what I would do is I would say, okay, Spurs, let's play ball. No pun intended. And let's take a look at how we create a public-private partnership that makes sense for the citizens of San Antonio, that gives them a return on their investment, that shows them that they do have a tremendous economic impact. Now, will a new arena create more economic impact? I think it will, because now, in an entertainment district as well, because now our people who go out and sell San Antonio will have something great to sell. If you look at places like Austin and Houston and Dallas, they've got their entertainment districts, and they're able to attract, major sports events and whatever other conventions are coming. So we've got to also give our convention people, those that are visitors people, visiting conventions folks that are out there selling, let's give them something to sell, because we've got other communities that are doubling down and investing in entertainment districts, convention centers that are going to be, competing with us. But the one thing that is the most important to me, and this is a question for everyone in San Antonio, for all the taxpayers, is: do we want to keep the Spurs? Have they been an important part of our economy? And if so, then it's worth fighting for.
Is the city being unfair to Bexar County government? Because the Spurs would be moving from the Frost Bank Center on the east side, which is a county-owned facility, to this downtown arena.
I wonder if the same question was asked last time about
20 years ago.
About the county.
5 years ago. I wasn't around then. So
look, I'll tell you, the Frost Bank Center is a great facility. I think that a lot could be done with that. I think that the rodeo could really turn this into an agricultural mecca for the region, for the community. There are many solutions for that, but we have to work together with the county. And you're talking about fairness between two governments. Let's talk about intergovernmental relations. Does the city get along with the county? Does the city get along with our state and with our federal government? We all need to come together. We all need to work together, because if the city and the county can't agree, can't talk about building a better place, then we're dead on arrival. Same thing with our state. I think our state needs to be a part of all of this. We need to be able to tap state money. All the other mayors of the big cities are competing in Austin today against us for state funds, that we can be drawing home. And when, we look at the I still call it the AT&T Arena, but
Frost Bank.
Frost Bank Center.
I call it SBC Global.
You're really old. Look, I mean, the East Side deserves to have, a center of excellence, like one that could be created around the rodeo, around the golf course there. It's time. It's time. We can't go on neglecting that community the way we have been. The way that's been designed, where you rush in and you rush out, that's not what people thought was going to happen. But then again, that was the county doing that back then.
Right.
And it sounds like back then they weren't talking either. Or if they were, they weren't agreeing. So
that was the whole generation.
Yeah.
You need to let that go.
Oh, well,
it's kind of an obvious question. Like, how much should the Spurs, if they want a new arena, how much of the cost should they bear?
Well, look, I think it's based on a formula based on economic impact. What kind of economic impact will a new arena generate?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of economic impact have the Spurs generated? You look at past performance. Now, it's not indicative of future results, but if you know that the Spurs can draw a certain amount of economic impact, out there, what can they do close to downtown in an entertainment complex? That's the analysis. Irrespective of what people, if you don't like basketball, whatever, the Spurs sell entertainment. They're an entertainment company. They're able to draw a national viewership. They're able to draw national players, international players. So they do build the San Antonio brand tremendously. Everywhere I would travel around the world selling Texas, and I would tell them that San Antonio's home, the Spurs came to mind.
Right.
So that's our iconic,
Did anybody ever say the Alamo? Ever?
No, they would, in China, the one guy said, "Oh, Texas, bang, bang." That's the one thing that some guy told me. So they know Cowboys, so they know Westerns, but really the Spurs are known worldwide. That's who we are. And I believe that we need to collaborate with them, but in a very transparent way, in a fair way that tells the citizens of San Antonio that they are a true community partner, and not in a way where we're going to fund everything. I don't see that happening, but I do see a good collaboration that can happen. But it's got to be, it's got to be fair for the people, and we have to have a good return on the investment, and it's got to pay for itself.
All right, great. Got a very clear, very straightforward question from one of our viewers. How do you think the mayor and city council can address the need for affordable housing? Simple question. So much.
Very straightforward.
Totally straightforward. How you answer it, not so much. But
I think the best way to address affordable housing is to give people good jobs so they can afford a house. I think that's where you start. You start with eradicating the need for affordable housing and making, wealth creation a priority. And the way you do that is through aggressive economic development. You bring in quality companies that are going to create quality jobs, get our people hired, upskilling them, getting these folks to draw paychecks so they can have a dignified place to call home. That's the first place. We keep treating the symptom. Let's look at the root cause of the need for affordable housing is because people don't have enough income. So let's give them income. Let's work with them. And part of the best way to do it, particularly for those who weren't able to get an education, but are willing to start their business. A lot of people who are not, quote, employable for whatever reason, they go start their own business. Well, let's support them. Let's help them grow their business so they can afford a home. Now, with respect to affordable housing and all that, let me tell you, we've got a dilemma. We've got people who don't want affordable housing, and we want people, and then we have people who are willing to build affordable housing, and we're getting in their way. So, that's just an issue that needs to be addressed through leadership. But I do believe that the developers need to make a good case to these neighborhoods that whatever they're building in their neighborhood is the right thing. But we need workforce housing. You talk to any business on the north side, and you ask them about their ability to hire, to draw talent. People are having to drive an hour to work, and that is anti-economic. It's not fair to them because a lot of these folks that are working across town from where they live, are spending their time and money getting to work, getting to and from work. So there's no getting around workforce housing, the need for workforce housing. So I would be very supportive of developing that in a way that makes these neighborhoods, feel comfortable. I think a lot of it is stereotypes. Part of that pushback that we see is the stereotypes, because a lot of the concerns aren't backed by data, about crime and property value and all that going on. I don't think that's backed by that. But if the perception is there, then we have to address the perception of people not wanting things in their backyard. But at the end of the day, I think it boils down to being able to give people on fixed incomes the opportunity to live in a comfortable environment. But I think going back, the best way to do it is to go to the root cause, and the root cause is the fact that they don't have enough money to afford their homes.
How would you vote in those situations, which we saw one recently a couple months back? It was for a planned North Side affordable apartment complex. How would you vote as mayor, one of 11 votes, if neighbors were against it, but city staff and members of the council appointed planning and zoning commissions wanted to approve, were in favor of the changes to make the development reality?
Well, look, what I would do first and foremost is I would start early in ensuring that we as city council create an environment where the developers can come in and speak to the community, talk to them. Because look, we're not here to carry the developers' water, but we can certainly help them at least create the platform so they can go sell their projects to the community. And I think it's up to them to do that. This thing, hypotheticals, every single hypothetical is different, but I'll tell you this much is we need to make sure that our city staff is starting early in communicating with these neighborhood associations. These neighborhood associations need to be heard. But at the same time, folks need to understand that workforce housing is required, is needed. Part of the gridlock that we talked about is because people have to commute. So if you go to root cause, what is the root cause of gridlock? Well, it's people on the road. Well, let's get people off the road, and perhaps that'll be a solution. But look, at the end of the day, I'm just one vote.
I mean, that's true, but
it is
Mayor,
a vote
your
that
job
can
is
send
also,
a message.
yeah,
It is a vote that can send a message.
right?
Yeah,
and presumably you're building coalitions, right? Like you're actually trying to move council one way or the other.
absolutely.
Okay. So and it's more than hypothetical. I mean, this is kind of the undercurrent of the question is a situation we had in District 10 with Councilman Mark White about 2 months ago. There was an affordable housing project, fairly small scale, that had received state tax credits. The neighbors kind of rose up. They did not want it, and Mark White sided with him. And ultimately, the city of San Antonio lost those tax credits. It went elsewhere. Where would you have come down had you been mayor at that time?
I don't know. I don't know enough about it. I don't know enough about the details. But like I said, I think that, the council person of that district should be given, deference, because they're the ones really who were voted by their community to represent them. And that's really all I can say about that. I don't know any of the details. I didn't follow it. I heard about it, but, I heard about the fallout. I didn't even follow through whatever it is. But again, I think a lot of that boils down to managing expectations early on. I've seen it with public utility projects. When I was a commissioner on the Public Utility Commission, I saw utility companies trying to build transmission lines or whatever it is, and failing to check in with the community first, failing to acknowledge and dignify their concerns. So you have to go in anytime you have a project like that. You have to go in and dignify the people's concerns. You have to talk to them. You have to make sure you understand, and then make sure that they understand what the project is really about. And that's where leadership comes in. That's where skill comes in, experience. All of that needs to come into play when you have these public projects.
All right. We are nearly at our 1 hour mark. So I'm going to try to squeeze in one more question.
Okay. Here it is.
I can't wait. Can't wait to hear it. Your answer, that is. If you become mayor, what do you see as your legacy project?
Look, I'm not even thinking in terms
Is it
of
Project Marvel? is that
changing the name of Project Marvel will be my legacy. That's an interesting question, and I'll answer it this way. We've allowed ourselves for decades to be defined as a poor community. We haven't cracked the code. We haven't been able to do anything. I mean, 18% 60 years ago. And I think that chipping away at that, being the catalyst for changing that perception, changing that dynamic of really allowing poverty to be how we're defined. I think that would be a good start. Also, with our education attainment, we've got to make sure that we go all in on education to the extent that the city can. And there are many ways that the city can work with the 300 school districts that we have here. I just believe that we've got to focus on unity, coming together. We're not going to do this if we continue to be divided along partisan lines, along ideology. Let's check all that at the door. Let's come together. So what I would love to do is to be the person that is the bridge builder that brings this community together, that earns the trust of the community and moves forward, so that San Antonio can compete with the other Texas cities, so that our people can be prosperous, and so that our children come back.
All right. Rolando Pablos, thank you very much. I'm
Thank
sure
you
you
guys.
guys people to talk to, money to raise. You got an expensive campaign coming up. So
Boy,
$1 million.
Tell you what, that $1,000 limit that was set 20 years
Really
ago
feel
didn't
right?
consider the inflation cost.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Good seeing you.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. Please come back in a couple of weeks. We will have a yet to be announced mayoral candidate, another of the 300, and we will see you then. Thanks a lot.